Hi there, welcome to my next series on YouTube, which is going to be explaining the Garmin Montana. I have a 650T and how I use that for adventure riding. In this first episode, we're going to talk about profiles first. This is how I've set up my Montana. And because I set my Montana up probably 7 years ago now, I'm a bit rusty with some of this, but I will try and explain why I've decided to do what I do and the way I use the Montana and why I use it that way. So you're looking at the moment at my desktop for the Montana. And in the Montana, you can set up various different profiles. Now, a profile is a specific desktop and associated map settings, etc., for a particular user. So, in my case, I have a couple of profiles that I use all the time, and we can demonstrate those by going to Profile Change. And there we can see lots of different profiles. Now the top two are custom ones that I've set up, and then the rest of those profiles are ones that are built into the device when you actually get it. So if we look at one of the standard ones there, the motorcycle, so you can see there, that's the desktop for the motorcycle. And equally so, there are several different versions. So from that desktop, you can actually modify it and then save it as a custom profile. Okay, some of this you'll have to do your own reading for. But let's just go back to my off-road one. So in each of these profiles, you can actually then change what is on the actual desktop, and in this case you would then go to settings, and right down the bottom in settings is the main menu, and the main menu is what controls your desktop. And you can see here that you have the ability to remove items and add items, and when you use those keys, they will ask you to search through a list of shortcuts or applications and decide what you want to add and delete. Again, you may need to do some reading up separately on the Montana to see how to do that. So if I go back to my desktop, so as I said, this is my off-road desktop, and then I have the ability, obviously on the move, because I've got the profile change button on my desktop, to then flick to, in this case, Timex City Navigator, which is my on-road desktop. So I use my Montana in both the car and on the bike. So in the car, I'll select this on-road profile, and then once on the bike, I'll select the off-road profile. So I also have several different maps installed on my Garmin, and what profiles does is it allows you to make an individual map setting for each of your profiles. So in this case, if I go to map, you can see the display is an automotive display. You can see up this corner the arrow for the northerly direction is floating, therefore it's a normal car type track is up orientation. And the mapping it is using, if I go down to setup map and map information, you can see there that the base map is disabled, topo is disabled, and only city navigator is turned on. So in this particular profile, and you can see it's in automotive mode with a dashboard Nuvi setup. So that is my on-road car type display. On this display I also have the ability to where to, and because the city navigator is I'll just stop that navigation. Because city navigator mapping is routable mapping, I have the choice to select an address or a waypoint or anything and actually ask the machine to navigate me to that point. I also have the mark waypoint tool. If I see something interesting, I can mark the waypoint. And I have the system reset here, which will reset the trip meter within the device. I also have the ability to select the display to show speed, time of day, and speed again, direction, distance to destination, and trip odometer. So that reset button will reset the trip odometer there. All of this display is customizable through pressing on the menu and changing data fields in the setup trip computer. Okay, so that is really my on-road display. Now on the move I can then go to profile change and go to off-road. Now when I go to map, the map I have set in this screen, if I go to setup map, the map selected here is, you can see that I've enabled topo and city navigator is turned off, and so are Shonky Maps and the worldwide. So this profile by default uses my topo mapping. Also you'll see the orientation is set to north up. Now what that will mean is all the time I'm in my map that north is at the top of the screen, and what that does is if ever I stop at a junction, you'll see sometimes if you've got track up selected, the map will start to spin. But with the map set to north up, then the only thing that will spin is the little arrow just there, which is U. So for directional orientation I prefer my map to stay still, and also by having the track at north up, I can also again tell whether I'm heading south, north, east, west very easily. I understand that at some junctions it's very difficult to figure out left and right, but I'm sort of used to it. But when you're actually searching and hunting for tracks, it is useful to know the general direction in which you're travelling. If you're trying to achieve, I just want to get west, and you can pick a track that's heading in that direction and follow it until it veers off, and then find another track that's definitely heading west. So for situational awareness I find north up much better, and like I say, the map will stay stationary when you stop, which is a big positive. Alright, still on this we've got system reset, which I can show you now. and that will allow me to reset all my timers, averages, and so that resets the trip odometer. I'd do that prior to any ride. Track Manager is going to allow me to select record on track log, which for every track I would normally select record show on map, which is then going to show my track as a light blue line, so that if I do go off course I can soon see that my light blue line is no longer following the selected track, and I can backtrack fairly easily. Mark waypoint. I use mark waypoint in case I see an obstacle when I'm planning a route, and I can then have that flag come up on everyone's computer to warn them of a river crossing or a large whoop section which they may not see because it's on a bend. So I can use it to mark fuel locations and start and end points, and destinations for food and lodging, that sort of thing. What the Waypoint Manager does is it allows me to view distances to waypoints very easily, and this allows me on the track, if I need to, and I'm getting short on fuel, I can easily look up if I've marked fuel as waypoints as how much further I've got to go. You just need to remember that that is actually as the crow flies, not as the map shows. So it's a useful point, and used it in a couple of our rallies fairly well for suitable campsites, and near the end of the day you were able to flick on Waypoint Manager and see that there was a suitable campsite coming up in 10k or 20k, and you could decide which one you felt you would reach before dark, which was fairly useful. Tracks obviously is my current track at the top, any archive tracks, but then any tracks that I've actually loaded onto the Montana, and I can select those and navigate them, which I'll show you in another episode because it's an episode in itself. Okay, and then the trip computer, I've actually set that up so it is actually a dashboard for my bike, and I actually use that as my main dashboard when I'm driving, because the KDM Speedo is very small, so I tend to use the GPS and just remember that the speed freezes when I go through tunnels, but that isn't very often. And you will see here the distance to destination, which would be displayed if I was following a track, and there's my odometer, which I can reset to 0 through that reset option. Okay, so that's probably a reasonable run through of how I set up my profiles. And obviously I would normally be in the off-road profile following a track that someone has provided or I've provided, and then should I finish the track some distance from home, it is easy enough to then go to City Navigator and then just go where to and select from recent finds or as set up home, and it will navigate me just like a car GPS back to home. You may be asking yourselves, how come I've got a fancy KDM background? Just in case you'd like to do the same with your bike logo. If you go into menus, hopefully if I can find it. Somewhere here. So if you go in photos, If you save the KDM logo to a photo, in this menu you have the ability to set that as wallpaper. Okay. Okay. Now hopefully that's enough for the first episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.